Okay, so this is the start of the part 2 video. Part 1, I set up the installations of everything. I just realized I forgot to mention in part 1 that I did a npm installed assign deep. Never actually mentioned that. Forgive me. But yeah, so this is part 2. I'm gonna get interrupted at some point here, so I might not. To you it'll be the same video, but if I'm jumping around, just understand. So we've handled the key value cases. Now it's actually time to handle special cases. And so with that, we're going to do it a little bit differently. We'll do the special cases. It'll be /save/ and that might be like an address or something. I just realized though address will be fine because actually address will work with this. Like that's what I'm saying. The only special case is the bank account. And bank account, you need that token. It's its own thing. So here it is, npm install, and then we just jump onto the front end and do npm install. I have these URLs in the description. This is the Stripe, React Stripe elements by Stripe. This is how they recommend doing the front end if you're using React. I've done it a different way, to be honest, before. And once it's done installing, which it is, we have to go to our no, we don't want that. We want the following. We have to go to our atom, and we're going to go to our index, which is a React router. And we got a whole bunch of stuff here. And we're going to import the Stripe provider. And it says that you want to put this on the parent, I think. I think we're just going to put it around everything for now. I've actually never used this library, and it says, okay, so put your Stripe and then put your API key. For us, our API key lives in our config, in that config/config.js. And so it lives right here, config, and then here it is, public key. This is mine, you have your own. So all you have to do is do an import on the config from back1, back2, and it's config/config. And hopefully that loads your Stripe key. I've actually never tried that, we'll see. We can actually load we do an npm run, and then if it doesn't compile on the Webpack side, we'll know. Okay, so we're going to keep scrolling down, and this is going to be import the elements. I have to look to see what actually, they must have a component for the bank account, because that's what we're going for. We're trying to get the external bank account. We don't need to do the credit card. That's for just charging. We're not charging in this case. So with that, home, and we're going to be on home, and that's where we're going to import elements, because when we do the bank account, we'll do it's a special case. So I realize I'm just saying a bunch. In this field's needed, a point, there'll be field needed, and it'll be bank account. All right. I don't remember if it's underscore or not. Hopefully this compiles and my page is still around. No. Oh, I need to add Stripe.js, but I don't remember if it's bank account underscore or not, so we'll just comment that out for right now. It says I need to add this library. I'll just copy this, and what I have to do is I'll just add it to my, there's a public folder. Here it is. I'm just going to add it, not like that, but as a script tag. Not like that either. And that's done. So that's been added. Oh, it is underscore bank. So what we're going to go do is say if the field is properly spelled, bank account, we're going to return a custom input. This would be, sorry, I didn't mean to say but this would be where we'd include the Stripe React elements components that to generate the token. So if I refresh this page, I don't think my server is running anymore. Start dev I'm switching back over. I went to the terminal, and now I'm switching back to the actual browser window. Try refreshing the page again. Let's say loading, and then so now we just see bank account, just showing that it's just a paragraph tag there, and it's actually rendering our new UI element. As you can tell, it's kind of a new day for me. I'm going to start closing some of these tabs because I'm getting way too many of them. It's going to get confusing. So hold on, I'm just going to keep closing. We handle the terms of services. I have all these links down in the description. So Stripe.js is what we're doing now. We will need the full API docs. We already hit our starting point. The Node.js library we already done. This is the Stripe Reacts. We will need that. We will also need this Medium post. I'm gonna keep it open. I'm gonna close that. Testing. We need required information for verification. Let's close that. And we'll leave this open because it's pretty standard. Okay, so I just had to go through and clear some of those tabs. So we're gonna switch back to our React striped elements and look at our code actually. We're going to look at our route, so our index.js. So we've added the stripe provider, we've added the public key. We're going to keep scrolling down here. Now we have to add elements. So elements will actually go inside this, not this one, inside home.js. So elements will be here. And if you read the message there on the Stripe React docs, it says next when you're building the component, you'll wrap elements component around your form. This groups the elements, stripe elements you're using together, so you'll be able to pull data from groups of elements when you're tokenizing. At some point here it actually warned me, I forget exactly where, but it warns me that you can't actually just you have to have a child of the elements, you can't just add to the elements component. So that's the elements component, and then we're going to have to have a form in there. And so we'll do that, we'll add the form, we'll call it, in our home folder, we'll create a new thing called bank account form. Let's literally call it a form. And just for now, we're going to type it in a pure function, so just import React from React, and we'll just call it bank account form. And for now, we'll probably be changing this around, but I'm just going to put a 2 in there so you know that it's now updated. Export default bank account form. This allows us to go back to our home.js, scroll to the very top. I really wish I could keep all those functions closed, and then just do an import from bank account form. Close the constructor, close a lot of these functions so you can see what I'm clearly doing. Okay, so I'm in the render, scrolling down. Inside the elements, I want to load my bank account form. Save that. As you can see, my near React refreshed. I have bank account 2. So now it's the time to actually add the form element. So they have the instructions here. The thing is that we want to add an external bank account. We don't want to add a credit card. So I'm assuming this is, it says card section. We don't actually want that. That's what we don't want that, essentially, it was what I'm trying to say. And so we want to copy this first line because we'll need to have that. And we're working it inside of bank account form. And so we'll inject stripe, save that, scroll to the bottom, and the very last thing is it on the export, it does this. So we've added the inject stripe. So there is an on handle, so we'll have to change from the pure written function to an actual component. So component, import component, changes to be a class. It extends component. Open the. For now, we can just remove this. It doesn't have a constructor. We have to add a renderer. Or render. We'll return all these elements for now. And then we'll have to create the handle submit button. And paste this in. Okay. this is going to essentially prevent the action from performing. So when you hit submit, we actually want to stop that. This is this.props.create token. This prop is being passed through the elements, the parent element component. So elements is passing through, I believe. This is the token being generated. So now we just have to find out how we can change this around to be used with an external bank account. So this line of code will do the same thing. Okay, so this is just like this shows you how to handle this, the callback of a promise. So we know that this means that we've generated the token. So if you just called this, it would just generate the token, but you wouldn't actually be able to use it because you just wouldn't be able to. So what we do here is this is where we'd put the call to the backend, and so we will do that. First, though, we have to set up the information to actually gather the bank account information. So let's take a look at the React docs, at the docs here. Just see the card element. I'm just looking for anything involving. I just want to see if they have any examples with an actual bank account. There's nothing on the actual README. We'll just check the source. Maybe in demo. Close the code, no. Maybe let's see what's in. So they have card section and address section. Oh, so this is called the card element, and that's coming from the React. So let's take a look. You know what? Let's look at the actual elements. Let's see what kind of elements. So this is useless. Okay, that's kind of annoying. This won't work because there's more to come. Doesn't help us because we need the bank account one. So what we're gonna do is, so after a little research, I looked around and I realized that you can't actually Stripe React elements. The elements they do support are card elements, postal code, and payment request button. This are none of the ones that support bank account elements. So as much as I would actually like to go in and update and support this library here, I just don't have the time right at the moment. So what I did was I pulled up the PHP version of this same video. I wrote an article on how to do it. And this file here is a JavaScript file which generates the create token. As you can see, stripe.create token. And if you look at our code, stripe.create token. It's the same call, except one couple differences. But the important aspect to it is here. I'm going to see if we can generate if we have just a basic form, and then on the submission we can actually handle all of this. We have the country, we have the currency, we have the routing number, we have the account number, the holder name, and the type, and then see if we submit it, see if we get a response back, a proper response back, and if we do, we'll just use that because that's exactly what we need. So we'll kind of just create our own custom component. I know it's not an actual Stripe element like card section here, but we will create something called it's called bank account section. And I'll actually post this in a gist online. I'll include that in the description below. So I'm just gonna pause the video here, write all this code, and then you can view it after. Now that I've actually written this entire component out, I'll now kind of explain it. I'll have a gist called bank account section in the description. You'll be able to find all of this code. I'm actually hoping to put all this code somewhere that can be easily accessed by people. So now that you see this is what I wrote. I kind of wrote it as a pure function as much as possible. The idea is like you can just use it. You don't actually have to the entire state is managed in the parent. And so as you can see, there's a whole list of props being passed in. And let me kind of go through and explain. So there's input wrapper style. That's not required. This is if you want to start styling things. There's the label style, that's if you want to style the label, and then there's the input text box style, that's if you want to style the input text box. And then essentially every single item, so here's account holder type, it has a key, which is by default this account holder type is this one, and we know that so that this ID can link to this this label. In addition to that, when we can only we pass in one onChange function into the thing, and what happens is when you start typing, the event gets called, it gets passed through with the type. So you only have to write one onChange function. This is going to be kind of a time saver on the parent when you're writing the parent function. I'll explain that more. And the last is the account holder type value, the actual value inside the text box, which is going to be saved in state. Okay, so I'm going to show you. See, a lot of the props aren't required, and I'm not going to actually reference a lot of them. All these get referenced by these constants that are at the top of the file. The only thing that matter are this onChange function, which you have to bind to the parent, and these values which live in state. So with that, I'm going to copy these to start off with. Open up my account form. This doesn't have a constructor, but now we're going to actually add the constructor. And this is going to be called super, and then props we're going to pass, and then this dot state dot, and then we're open up. And so I'm just holding my command down and clicking, and I can do a multi-click, and I'm just going to remove all of this and start it as our values all start as null. I'm going to do this. I'm going to bind the on handle to the actual component, and the last thing is I have to write the on change. I'm going to call it on text box change because we don't, and it's going to get an event, and it's also going to get the type text box. I don't know. Let's say we'll keep the name consistent with the child one. So text box key, and we're going to copy that. Scroll to the top, do this dot on text box change. Okay, so with that, we know this based on the key, and since we're not going to pass it, actually I'll show you that first. So we're going to remove this. We're going to bring in our bank account section, which hasn't been declared yet. So we're going to scroll to the top, do an import bank account section from, and then since it's in the same folder path on the left side here, it's just /. I'm scrolling back down to the bottom, and then in our render, we want the values from state. So this will be this dot state. I'm going to scroll back up. Sorry, I'm doing a lot of scrolling and copying here. And then, so I'm doing that multi-click thing because all we need is this. And I'm going to copy all that again because these are the exact same prop names as the child. So if I do this, and then I'm just going to go through and copy each one into value. And our on text box is our on change function. And so that's this dot on change function. And the last thing we have to do is actually update the state. And so this would be text box is equal to, and then we have to get it's based on the key, but we haven't actually set the key but it is being set by default to these. And if you scroll to the top, you'll see that all these functions here can be are all being exported, so you can just reference them. So let's go back to the top of our page, and you're just going to do an import. I don't know if this works because it says export by default. I don't know if, okay, so I lied. I don't know if this completely works. We'll see in a second. This is technically a duplicate import. Don't know the specifics of this one. I don't know if that's going to work, but we can try. So we'll use one as an example. So if country then we want to say this dot set state, and that's going to be country value is going to be, if you know React, you'll know that the value of it on changed for text box lives in the event.target.value, and we can just do this. So okay, it failed compile because of this syntax here. Doesn't like it. That should work now. I'm just gonna restart my server. I really don't know about that. The import the constants and then also import the component, because the export as default should be an issue actually. There's an error too. Okay, it says it's successfully compiled. We'll see if that's true. It looks like I have all my variables. Let's try typing. Okay, so it works. But if I hit K on the currency there, it doesn't enter because the onChange isn't actually catching it. So good news is I can actually import it like that. So I'm gonna scroll back down and I'm gonna finish adding. Change this. Save account, and then I'm also going to finish adding all my other variables here, so all the ones here. So I'm just doing else if, and then text box is equal to, let's say, currency. I'll also do the exact same thing here. And this can be almost even more efficiently written if you can somehow figure out a way to get the literal value of what's in this variable, and then just say the literal value goes into here, and then whatever it is set as the value. That would be actually a more efficient way to write this function. I don't know how to do that off the top of my head, so we're not going to. I'm just going to copy and paste that a couple times. And so currency, and then here, account number. Holder type. Remove all these extra commas and scroll to the top and say currency value, and routing number value, and account number value, whole account holder name, account holder type, and that should work. Our thing has successfully compiled, so now let's try this again. Let's say Canada, and let's say our currency is the Canadian currency, and our routing number is, these aren't literal values because I don't know, I'll need to actually get the proper values in terms of like the actual test values that are under this tab. But the next thing we have to do is actually do the submission with the create token, and so with that, we're going to copy. I switched to the Medium article, and then I'm going to switch back, and now I'm looking at this on submit handle, and I'm going to paste this in here. And so the first thing I got to do is these values are all incorrect. So I got to do I have to grab the values from state. I'll do it after the prevent default, and grab the values from state. There's a lot of copying and pasting here. This code could definitely be written more efficiently, but this is just a general to show you how to do it. So let's try this. Country value is going to be this. Currency is going to be this. Our routing number. Our account number. Account holder name. And our account type. So we're going to pass in bank account as the first parameter, and then our information as the second, and we're going to see if that works. So it's going to be actually bank account, comma, and then our options here. And now we'll check to see if the received stripe token actually worked. And so that shall recompile, and I believe it has. And so I'm going to do Canada, the currency is Canadian. My testing routing numbers, I'm on the test docs/connect/testing. window I've included in the description. I'm going to switch this over to be Canada. I am Canadian. My routing number is this. My account number is this, and I need to say my name and my account type. Honestly, I don't know what the types are. I think it's business or company, personal or company, but it's all about the wording. I think it's individual and company are the type string codes. So individual being a personal account and then company being a business account. I'm gonna try typing in individual. You can look this up, but I'm not going to. And I hit submit. Through an error. Received a Stripe token. It's not in live mode, and yeah, that looks like a Stripe token. So, whew, yes, this is successful. Wow, I really winged that one. I'm not gonna lie to you. So what we need is this ID here, and this ID will, as you can see, it's account type individual. Bank account is like a made-up bank account, and this ID is what we're gonna submit to the backend to be saved. And so with that, we're gonna have to say create a new endpoint. And so, actually, before we go and create the endpoint, what we're going to do is we're going to create the fetch call that does it. So when we receive this token, which is, I guess, all of this, let's actually check what they actually want in terms of the submission. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reference, again, this previous one I've written on about doing it in PHP. I'm just going to see what I'm passing with PHP, right? Like, so I'm looking for the token.id. And that's all I need. So I'm updating external accounts with the token.id, which is what I need. So all I'm going to do is pass the ID, because the rest lives on Stripe, on the Stripe server, and all it has to know is what ID to reference. And so what we're going to do is do the fetch. I'm going to set up the fetch call to actually pass the ID along. So if I do constant and then I pass ID, that will pull out the token ID. So I need to create a onsave account function, and this function will essentially do my save action. And I'm going to grab it from. The thing is, I need an actual call to demo off, and so this is going to be it. I really got to create a toggle is loading, so that I can. I'm going to stop again there. I'm not going to put the onsave in here. I'm going to put it in the parent, because that's where all my other functions are right here. Save that. And since I'm just passing in the ID, I don't need fields needed, and I'm going to change it so I know that it's passing through. And I'm going to call the endpoint. The endpoint will be save account, and I'm going to say Stripe token. And I'm just going to pass the ID. I'm going to call it Stripe token ID because I don't want to get confused. And then it's gonna, if it's successful, it will show. If it fails, it shows the error and stop loading. Otherwise, it refreshes. If it does a fetch account to see what other fields are required. And that's it. That's not quite it. You need to pass this onsave down to the child component. So scroll up to your constructor. You have to do two things. You have to do this dot and then bind it. You can minimize the constructor now. And you scroll down to where we're actually calling the bank account form, and you just pass it through. So this dot onsave will reference the actual event, and then this will be the prop. Since it's not here, we can grab the prop from the props. So we'll have to import it to start off with. So we're going to start by importing props. Prop type from prop-types. Scroll to the bottom. I know I'm doing a lot of scrolling again. You type a bank account form dot prop types. We're going to be passing onsave as a prop, save account, and then it's prop types dot and then function, because we're passing a function. This is required in order to load this component. And then we're going to scroll back up, and now so we can do the following call. We do same way we grab state, we're going to do constant, and then the onsave account, and this dot props. I'm going to pull it out of the props. So we can do this and do this, and that will call the onsave from the parent component, and then so we don't have to worry about this entire form handling, you know, the is loading and handling the fetch account again. They're all already declared in this parent component, so it's actually better to put this call in that parent and then just pass it down to the child. Now I'm covering a lot of stuff about React right now. Hopefully you understand React well enough that you can understand that. Next we're going to get started with writing the actual save account. So with the save account, what we're going to do is use this endpoint that we've already declared. This is the front end I'm currently at. We're passing in through the Stripe token ID. So if this hasn't refreshed yet, it has. Essentially what we generate is the Stripe token. We use all of this and Stripe.js to actually generate a token. If you haven't done that, watch the previous step. And it calls Stripe account, this big long, and then it passes Stripe token ID in the request body. So I'm going to close the front end because this is about the back end now. And I'm going to minimize this for now. And I'm going to say, just comment that there. And I'm just going to copy my entire save. It's going to change, but I'm just going to copy it as a starting point. So what I'm going to first do is paste the save/account. So if it doesn't have a Stripe account ID, we shouldn't do anything. The other thing we should do is we can take out all of this. This is all the Stripe update code that isn't being used. Okay. And so we'll still need to create the Stripe object, but this time with the external account in it. But we will need another check because we're now grabbing a parameter, which is Stripe token ID, and that can be found in the body since it's a post request. And what we actually need to do is just add one check to say, you know, if this is empty, don't bother. Like, Stripe will throw that error, probably throw that error. I mean, I haven't tried it, but I assume Stripe will throw that error, but we really should just throw it ourselves, saying, come on, you're missing this Stripe token ID. I don't know why these are returning success. No, these are false. I guess this one's true. If you're missing the Stripe, it just shows you the error. But they really should show you the just an error message, because this shouldn't be getting called if it's empty. Whatever, it's your call. Since I'm hard coding, it will never be hit. And so the last thing I just have to check is how to actually update what in the Stripe object it contains external account. So I'm going to switch my Google Chrome. What I said in the previous step was I'm referencing this Medium post. Based on the Medium post, it is in the external accounts, and it creates an array of it. I'm just going to take a look at the full API documentation for that. Based on my PHP, I know I'm not expecting you to understand PHP. So essentially, it's in the external account object. So it looks like that. From what I understand, this is an object, so it's just external account, and then it points to the ID. So let's just try that. Based on my understanding of PHP, that's what it is. And we'll save that, and if it throws an error, we'll see it. So what we'll have to do is do an npm run start dev. Unfortunately, I can't just ping this endpoint with the actual with the REST client. I actually have to use the front end because I'm generating that Stripe token. So I'm actually going to stop this for a second. I just did Control-C. I'm switching back over to my code. What I'm going to do is just print out this Stripe token to verify that it's actually being passed through. Because if this is, I mean, I should get the error, but just to verify what I'm receiving. So I'm going to just do the npm run start again, and it's going to start up. The front end is not compiled yet because it has to do the webpack compile here. Okay, now it has done it. The page is reloading. It's telling me I'm missing all this information. That's fantastic. My currency is, my country is Canada, my currency is Canadian. I go to my testing, I have my account number here. The testing link is in the description. Paste that. I'm going to copy the routing number. I want the payment to succeed, to be honest. I can test. I'm not going to show you how to test the additional things, so I'm going to just call myself. Yeah, let's just say that. And then individual, which is, I think there's company and there's individual. Yeah. Just type in anything else. It'll throw an error telling you exactly what your options are. And I'm just going to hit save account. There was an error. I don't know what the error was. Okay, here's the error. Scrolling up. The external must include an object key. Object. Param external hash must include an object key to create. We've now created this entire endpoint. I got that error there. That was a little finicky. I tried this, but I realized I also tried to put this into another array, as you saw. I changed it to just be the external count, and that worked. I mean, I have to still try that. I'm going to show you now. So I have all the information here. I'm going to hit save. It's going to say loading. And okay, so it says error just because it didn't have an error, as you can see by the command line. It says error because I didn't actually refresh the front end. But that's how you add an external count. That was one of the special cases that took a lot longer than a lot of the other cases. I have here just the individual. The type, I'm going to change this to be individual. I just copied and pasted it in. Hit save. Okay, so now it's going to start asking for my address and stuff. I'm going to start entering this without. This is all in the dot notation, so you don't need to actually show this. I don't actually have to show this, so I'm just going to fill this out, and then I'll get back to you. Sorry, I'm just stopping again. You will get an error because you'll need to do ON for Ontario. Well, that's for for Canada, and then in America you'll have to do. It will be like your state, the short versions, but Stripe will actually tell you that error, and it actually says that I'm all set up here, which is different because I know for a fact that there is file upload. It's for the verification document. I'm gonna blame it on the fact that since we're going through and updating and writing code, since I cleared it, now I believe that if I do the entire setup, I'll run into some more cases that I haven't covered. So the personal ID says wasn't covered there, but that doesn't matter because it's not a special case. And then the file upload, I really want to hit that because if you hit that, you can't do anything. So what I'm gonna do is actually put a fields needed printout in my front end. So if I go to my home.js and I scroll to, let's say, let's not do it in the render, but let's say in the account response. So when I do a fetch account, it returns the account information. Yeah, it returns the account. Let's do it in the render because I pull fields needed out here. Okay, so I'm going to do a console log and then do a fields needed. It's going to refresh on the front. I'm just going to refresh the entire page. It's going to rebuild this. And it's going to tell us to begin setup. So when I hit begin setup, that's going to agree to the terms of services. And that's not going to work, right? Because we don't actually save it into a user database because I haven't set that one up. But what I was saying that is I'm going to copy it here. And then I'm going back onto my backend and paste it everywhere that you're supposed to be pulling it from a user database. So Stripe account, close them as I go through. Stripe account ID, close that as I go through. Account setup, already happened. And here. And that will have taken down my server. It won't be running. So I'm just going to do an npm run start dev again. And if I do a refresh on the page, it's going to take a second because the Webpack's going to still recompile. It's going to say loading. Okay, here are all the things I'm missing. A lot of them. And so I'm going to change the information. I'm going to call myself John, I guess, now, just to change my information a little bit. I'm still going to say I'm born on the first day because this focus error is killing me. First name is going to be J, let's say John Smith. The count is going to be, let's call it, why don't you make the account a company? Maybe that's going to change it so that it works better. Country, let's do the US. Currency, you know what, this is actually going to work separately, because if I hit save, it's going to still say bank account. Let's do a city in the US, whatever CA is, and I think it's California. Went to Fake Street. Postal code, that's actually going to be your zip code, I believe. I don't know if this is, I think that's for the White House, I don't know, I'm not an American. That's, so this is the state, and then I want this to be the city, which is, I don't know, I know Palo Alto is a place in California. Hit save. I got an error. When did I get a valid error? So I said I was a Canadian, right? Because I'm passing through the country code and then I'm just reusing it. So this actually can't be the America. So that was the error with the has to be a valid. Okay. So L5A1. Just making this up. City. I mean, they don't care about whether the actual city is true or not. Business name and tax ID. Let's say John Company. And tax ID. I don't actually know what the tax ID is. Let's say testing. Let's take a look at our testing. This is our testing bank account numbers. Don't tell me like. Here, test bank account. Okay. Okay, and then we hit save again. And then our bank account. So we're gonna put our bank account in Canada, since we don't really have a choice here. Routing number is, I think it's all in the text box saved actually. So you might want to make these all passwords. Just a recommendation. Password text boxes. And then it shows fields needed as empty. So I'm just going to take a look at the connect user, hit accounts, unverified. Why does it keep saying personal ID is missing? Anyway, it doesn't show that personal ID is missing for some reason in the docs. But however, if you want, so you might need to do the file upload for verification. That code is right here. It shows you how to do it. I have other videos on that, so take a look at that. But essentially that's everything you need, and you get the general gist of how to update with Stripe Connect. If you like this video, please like it, please share it. Thanks for watching.